Welcome to another edition of the Suspense Squad, where authors interview authors. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is the amazing and talented Natalie Walters. Everybody, yay! So glad to have you here, Natalie.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love seeing all the faces. I know like most of everybody's names from like social media, but it's good to see faces and be able to talk to people, not just in my head.
Yes. So just to tell you a little bit about Natalie, her world revolves around G.I. Joe and 3 adult children. Her passion is writing stories where adventure meets love, and her belief that life rooted in purpose is a story worth telling. I've read all of her Harbor Secrets books, and I'm telling you, they're fabulous. And I'm looking forward to her newest release, Lights Out, which is from her new Snap series. And it releases on November the 2nd. So Natalie, can you show us the cover?
Yes, I can. I have a digital copy, so it's not going to be fantastic, but it will work. Okay. So this is the new book.
That's awesome. Love it.
Love it.
Very nice.
It's great.
And okay, so tell us a little bit about it and read the back cover copy.
Okay, I'll read the back cover and then we can talk about the book, the story, the people. Okay, so it's CIA analyst Bryn Taylor developed a new program to combat terrorism, and she invited members of foreign intelligence agencies to America to foster cooperation between countries. Now, one of them, an Egyptian spy, Ramon Riyad, is missing. Jack Hudson has been working for the Strategic Neutralization and Protection Agency for almost 9 years and takes the lead in hunting down the missing spy, but he isn't at all pleased to find out Bryn is involved. It's hard to trust a woman who's already betrayed you. Every lead they follow draws them dangerously deeper into an international plot. Kidnapping, murder, explosions, poisoning. The terrorists will do anything to accomplish their goal of causing a digital blackout that will blind a strategic U.S. military communications center and throw the world into chaos. Can Bryn surrender control to a man who doesn't trust her? And can Jack ever get over what she did to him? The fate of the world and their hearts hangs in the balance. Dun, dun, dun.
That sounds awesome. Can't wait to read it. So SNAP stands for Strategic Neutralization and Protection Agency.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. When I had originally came up with the concept of the team, it started with the agency first. So I actually had the name of the agency years ago, and I was like, okay, I knew what the agency's name was, and then I just had to build it up from the ground up with the team and with the director, and it's been a lot of fun. So the name has been in my head. There was no changing that. So when I submitted the proposal to the publishers, I was like, this is the name of the series. It cannot be anything other than this name.
That's awesome. So now how many books will be in this series?
This will be a 3-book series. Okay. The first book, like you said, comes out in November 2nd. Yeah. So
awesome. Well, the Suspense Squad has some questions for you.
Ooh.
Okay, so we're going to start with Hope.
Hey, hi, Natalie. It's so good to see you. And I'm so excited for your book. So I've read all the first 3 books in the first series. And I'm from Georgia, if you can't tell by the accent. So that was fun. The series is set in Georgia. Of course, I'm in the North Georgia mountains, not the lower part, but it was still fun to see that. So I'm excited about this one. So I want to know a little bit about your writing journey. Like, how did you get started with writing? How did you get your first contract? Those kind of things. Anything that you want to share with us?
Sure. So interestingly enough, I've always been a reader. I know there's some people like, I've dreamed of writing since I was a little girl. They've written, short stories. I was not that girl. I just liked reading all the time. I always had a book in my hand anywhere I went. It wasn't until I was a senior in high school that I was required by my teacher. We had to do reading, like we would take a book, we would dissect the method that the author used, and then we would mimic it in a short story of our own. And then she collected all of these and made it into a little book. And kind of then I was like, oh, this is kind of an interesting thing. And then really nothing happened after that. I just it was, again, never in my thought process to be a writer. And so fast forward, like 10, 15 years, and I'm a mom, I have 3 kids, and my kids are all in school and I'm bored. So I was like, well, I should do something about this. And I had found a book. I can't even tell you where I found it. It was called For the Right Reason, WRITE. And it was written with a bunch of excerpts from like Christian authors, publishers, editors, and it just kind of talked. And I had never really even known that there was such a thing as Christian fiction. I actually found a book on an airplane by Mindy Starnes Clark, and it was her the $1 Million series.
I love that series.
Me too. And I didn't even know, like, I didn't know that this thing. So I read it, and I bought all the rest of the books, and I read all of those, and I was like, I love good stories, and these are like, I want to write these. So then I ended up trying to figure out, okay, well, how does one start to write? And all the books it tells you, all the things you look up say conferences, there's writing clubs, there's a couple writing workshops, and I ended up joining Christian Writers Guild. So that was with Jerry Jenkins and Darlene, and I think Loretta, yeah. So we were in the same class, but we were all in the same group, and Diane Mills was our mentor. So that's how we actually connected. And I started that program, wrote my first manuscript while our family was stationed in Cairo, Egypt. And it was a suspense story, because that's what I tended to like, was suspense mystery type stuff. And Diane Mills said, you have to add romance. And I was like, I don't know how to write romance. So I was like, I don't know how to do that. So she worked with me and helped me fix that manuscript. I went to my first conference, ACFW, met with editors and agents, did my first pitch sessions. That story, unfortunately, it got great requests. You know, I got people interested in it, but there in France, they had the Charlie Hebdo terrorist attack at the same time that I had pitched my stories. And I must have had, in that week that happened, maybe 3 or 4 rejections that just said, this is not going to fly right now. It's too personal. It's too timely, I guess, which I was like, well, that's kind of the point, but it was just not going to work. So I said, okay. I ended up not, that one went into the file cabinet, so to speak, and went to my next conference, started working on Living Lies, which actually started based off so I went to my conference, I have to back. I went to my conference, had a new story, which was Living Lies at the time, and pitched that to editors and agents, ended up getting my agent that way. She read my story, had me make some adjustments, and then I pitched it at another conference and got good feedback from them. And then we submitted it. And then probably, I would say like a year later, got an offer for contract. So I would say, I started in 2010 with the Writers Guild, and then had my first publication in 2018. So about 8 years from start to current. So that was a lot.
I think that's very, common that it takes, that at least that long for people to get, in the world. So it's really interesting. I love that. So thank you for sharing.
Okay, Virginia.
Well, hi, Natalie. It's nice to meet you. I've never met you before.
Nice
I
to
love
meet
your
you.
books, though. I'm really looking forward to this next one coming up. So here at the Suspense Squad, we love to hear about authors' writing processes. Are you a pantser? Are you a plotter? How do you start your books? How do you get them done?
That's a good question. Most of the time, each book is different. I don't know how I get it done. I turn it in and I'm like, I don't know how that happened. I am a plotter. I will I will get an idea, and I have got to flesh it out. It doesn't mean that I necessarily will stick with that, method or timeline, but I will have, for the most part, I'll have my main characters figured out. And when I say figured out, I mean, I know their names and I know their general description. I know a few of their likes. I'm not a big character, go into all the details. I kind of like that to kind of happen for me naturally. But I have to know, okay, what's the first thing that's going to happen? what are some of the scenes that are going to happen? What's the climax scene? How is it going to end? And then, because what tends to happen is as I start to write, if I don't have those pieces down, I will get probably, I don't know, a third of the way into the story. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then I have to go back and start all over again to figure out like, where am I at? What kind of hole did I get them into? And so in order to avoid that, I find that it's better that I plot it out and kind of see, okay, if I know where it's going, then I'm like, okay, I know this is the end zone here. I need to get to this point. And, that helps me fill in the gaps or whatever, but definitely a plotter. And as far as process goes, I tend to follow the story arc of having, I have probably 10 to 12, maybe 10 to 15 solid scene plot points of here's my hook, here's that first door, here's obstacle, here's a midway point. And then that also helps me kind of stay in the rhythm of my story. And then I write, and it will fall apart usually at several places in the story that just doesn't come together. And that's usually when I rely on my critique partner to brainstorm with me. And it's oftentimes something very little, like, oh yeah, she can't do that, or she can do this because of this. And then then it just kind of all falls into place. But for a good solid like week or two, I'll be like, I don't know why I'm a writer. I don't know what I'm doing. This is awful. This is horrible. And I will just sign my, give back whatever advance I got because I can't do it.
Wow, only a week, huh? I deal with that quite often.
I mean, it's multiple weeks over the course of the writing, but at least 1 week per chapter.
Gotcha. And I don't know if this is one of the questions, I don't think it is, but how long does it take you to write your book?
It takes me a lot longer than I would like to admit. I think so. Right now I'm currently working on a novella, and I was like, okay, I have 25 to 30,000 words to write. And if I do 1,000 words a day with the weekends off, it'll take me, 30 days or whatever to get it done. And I've got this like pretty little calendar with all the markings on it. And my husband's like, I don't know why you're doing that. We both know you're going to wait till the last minute and then bust it out because you are the master procrastinator. And I was like, but I'm trying not to do that. So I think for me, I tend to write well, I guess is the right word. I tend to write well. And I mean like a pretty clean first go at a chapter or a scene, probably 1,500 to 2,000 words a day. Like that is the most. So if it's it'll probably take me a month and a half to get through a full manuscript. And then I will send it to my critique partner. They'll go through it, write notes, send it back to me. I'll spend another 2 weeks going through the notes and edits. And then at that point, usually submission. So I would say a total of 2 months by the time I start. And so when I turn it into the editor, about 2 months probably.
Awesome. That sounds great. That wasn't one of the questions, right? I didn't just step on anybody's toes.
You're good. Okay, next up is Loretta.
Hey, Natalie.
Good to see you.
Okay, so tell me what a day in the life of Natalie Walters looks like.
Okay, well, I will give you, today was a better example of what I would hope all my days would look like. It's not realistic most of the time. So this morning I got up and I usually have a cup of hot tea. I'll do Bible study, read my Bible, and then I go to Pilates. So I do exercise a couple days a week, or I'll walk a couple days of the week. So it depends on what the schedule is. So I'll do that. Then I will spend a couple hours writing and try to get all of my words done in that time frame. And then usually I'll take a break for like lunch or shower, get ready, and then I will do work stuff. So not necessarily things that are like writing necessarily, but like okay, emails, articles that I need to write, any social media stuff, which is so hard for me. So social media stuff, newsletter things. Right now I'm a month away before release. So now it's all the marketing and promotional stuff, making sure graphics and stuff are ready and what giveaways and things that I've got coordinating. So that stuff tends to happen in the afternoon for me. And then my son will come home and then my husband will come home and then it's dinner, laundry. And then I usually will end up watching. Well, this is gonna be somebody's question. I know if it had time, Darlene was like, "Here, if this is time, so I won't give it away." But then there's something that I always indulge in if I have time, and I'll just wait until that question comes up if that happens.
Oh, the suspense!
The suspense! Dun dun dun.
Okay, Patty.
So my question is about the book itself. Have a favorite scene? And if so, what was the inspiration for that scene?
So I do. I actually I love this story. I think partly because I was able to take pieces of that original manuscript that I wrote that I like stuck into a file cabinet. I was able to use bits and pieces of that because I had written that while we were living in Egypt. And so because I have an Egyptian intelligence officer who's gone and parts of the story take place in Egypt, it was fun to kind of revisit that in my story world. So the one scene that kind of sticks out in my mind is when Jack and Bryn go to eat at this little Mediterranean, or I guess that's the best word to use for it, diner in DC, and it's owned by this family that they used to go there all the time when they were together, and they go back there. But it was just the characters, like the mom and the daughter who are the cooks, and they run it. It reminded me so much of like when we would go out to eat in Egypt. They were so welcoming to us and they were so kind, and the Egyptians really became like our family, like over there, and like, come eat, and you eat and you eat, and they're like, eat some more, you're eating some more. You're like, no, but you just keep eating because you don't want to tell them no, but they're just so happy to keep feeding you. And it was just really fun scene where like I had these characters kind of giving that love back to like Jack and Bryn, and they're kind of, in that really like, oh, we're back together, like we're working together now, we really don't like each other, but they're in that setting. So it was really fun to be able to bring that and some of the food that we used to eat and the smells. It was interesting when I wrote that scene because in Egypt they smoke, and there's no non-smoking rules in restaurants. So there's a heavy cigarette smoke aroma no matter where you go. And when I wrote that scene, I wanted that aroma and scent, but I was like, well, but in America we have no smoking rules or whatever. So I had to really think that through. But there's a place here in Texas where my sister always takes me, and it's a Mediterranean restaurant, and it smells just like Egypt. Like it's got that heavy cigarette smell, but it's because the people who are cooking are smoking. So it's just on their body. But but it's such a familiar and like almost comforting scent to me, because I'm like, okay, yeah, this is going to be real Mediterranean, like real, Middle Eastern food, because they're like, this is what I'm familiar with. So I incorporated that in there. And I really was like, is somebody going to call me out on this? Is someone going to say like, there's no smoking in restaurants anymore? And there's not in this particular restaurant, but that does not mean that the people who are in there eating don't smoke or smell like cigarettes. So there you go.
Okay, so the question that you were alluding to earlier, tell us something about yourself that we cannot find on the internet.
Okay, so I was like, okay, what have I not said on the internet? I'm pretty open on the internet. I pretty much tell you how it is. I mean, I have makeup on right now, but normally not so much. So if you follow me on social media, this is an unusual look. In fact, my critique partner is always like, are you interviewing something today? Because she'll notice if I'm wearing makeup, like, oh, there must be some special occasion. So what I was thinking was, right before I actually even got on this video chat with you, I am a huge Judge Judy fan. So I love Judge Judy. I've had dreams where I've met her, like on the streets of New York. We've talked about her cases. I am obsessed with her. And I tell my children this, and if you ask any of them this question, I always say, like, everything you need to know about life, you can learn from a Judge Judy episode, because it'll tell you like who not to trust, who not to give your money to, how not to live. Don't fib, don't lie. And so that's my obsession. If every afternoon, it doesn't matter. And I'm really sad because she's officially, like, I think retired, and so now everything is just syndication. But I'm like, was really sad, but I'll still watch all of the reruns. I will watch it for as long as they keep playing them, because I just love it. I love the show.
You binge on Judy.
I do.